Okay, so it's Tuesday, the 23rd of February, and today we're looking at can I create cohesion? So cohesion is just the words and phrases you use which links all of your work together. So it sounds like a paragraph or a story rather than just sentences just put together next to each other. So very quickly, can you finish these sentences so that they make sense? So what I've done is in red there, I've put subordinate conjunctions. So I've only got half of a sentence each time. What I want you to do is look at that subordinate conjunction and think, right, how can I finish that sentence so that it makes sense? Obviously, there's loads of different options, loads of different right answers, but it all depends on whether you've thought about what that subordinate conjunction means and then what do you need for the rest of that sentence. So we've got Sheila fell over in the mud because, unless they had brought sandwiches, although the turtle was very tired, Donna still won the race despite, and even though it was very hot. So just let you pause it and have a go at rewriting the end of those sentences. Okay, as I said, obviously there's loads of possible right answers. So the first one, Sheila fell over in the mud because. So you want a reason why she fell over in the mud. I put her shoes didn't have any grip. That makes sense. Unless they had brought sandwiches, well, you want something that would happen if they hadn't brought sandwiches. So what would happen if they hadn't brought sandwiches? Well, they would be hungry. I put. Although the turtle was very tired, well, you want something which the turtle managed to do when you would have thought it would find it too difficult because of how tired it was. So I've got it still managed to climb the tree. So what did that turtle manage to do, even though it's very tired? Donna still won the race despite, so you need something which you would have thought would have stopped Donna winning that race. So I put despite her terrible leg injury. You would have thought that would have stopped her, but she won despite it. And even though it was very hot, well, you want something that happened that you wouldn't have thought would happen when it was very hot. So I've got the penguin still had his jumper on. So you have the same sentences as me, but hopefully yours still make perfect sense. And we can use some of these subordinate conjunctions because, unless, although, despite, even though, today to add cohesion to our work to help to link it together. So if you remember yesterday, we were writing our diary entry, weren't we? And we had happening in our diary, you were walking along the street, you were just out one day walking along the street and you came across this very strange shop and you went inside and there were all these kind of strange items in odd sort of places. And that's what we thought about yesterday. So if you want to pause and just remind yourself of what items you thought about yesterday, you can do that now. But the next bit of our diary is, so after that, what's happened is you look around for a while and then you're going to choose one of those items from you thought of yesterday. And you're going to get it from its shelf or in its little hole or behind the cobwebs or wherever it was. And you're going to go and you're going to buy that from a shop. Now, as soon as you get outside the shop, you're going to realize that this item has a magical power. And it's going to have one key magical power that it gives you. So pause the video here and think which objects you're going to take out and what could its magical power be? Okay, hopefully you thought of magical power. If not, you can use one of mine. Here's some examples I came up with. Maybe it turns you invisible. Maybe it stops time and starts time. Maybe it gives you the ability to fly. Maybe it means you can read other people's minds. Or maybe it gives you superhuman strength. I'm going to go with gives you superhuman strength for mine. So if you're struggling for an idea or you're not sure, go with the superhuman strength one because that's what I'm gonna talk you through. So here's a tricky bit. So whatever magical power your object has, you now need to think of some consequences of using or having that power. And I think if you really think about it, there's going to be lots of positive consequences. But there's also probably going to be some downsides, some negative consequences of this power. So have a think, what sort of things, try and be really creative. What sort of consequences would you have if you were able to turn invisible? What would that actually mean? What would that mean if you're walking down the street? If you have the ability to fly, and try and keep it in the diary entry. So you've just come out of this shop. So you might be on your way to school, you might be on your way to the park with a friend, but in that situation, what could you actually use that power for? And what would be the consequences? So I'm going to have myself with superhuman strength. I suddenly got superhuman strength and I'm on the way to the park to meet a friend, walking down the street. What might happen? So pause video here. Just make a quick list of the consequences of having your special power. Okay, so I've come up with some. And again, if you were struggling with this task, look at my examples, and then you might get some more ideas for your own. So I'm going to go for this. So this is gives you superhuman strength here. Okay, so I think I could lift cars into the air. If there were cars parked by the side of the road, I could just lift them up above my head. If they were parked like squint in their space, I could just like move them in the space properly. But then I thought, oh, maybe there's things where actually you're too strong. So I thought maybe you just get your phone out and just go to open your phone by putting your finger on it, you just crush the screen and it smashes the screen. But I thought maybe if a tree fell over in the road or something like big and heavy fell, you could just lift it back up. You could be a hero, couldn't you? Just lift it out of the way. And then I thought, oh, there's probably some other negative thing. Maybe you try to drink a can of Coke, but as you try and drink, you accidentally sort of crush it completely and all the Coke goes all over yourself. Maybe you lean against a wall and it crumbles to dust. You didn't mean to. I also thought one thing might be there's no one who needs your powers. I thought that might be quite a bad thing. Like, you know, I think in the movies like Superman and stuff, there's always someone who's about to be hit by a falling tree or about to get in a car crash and you can like lift the car out of the way. But how often does that happen that actually people just walking down the street need some superhuman strength? I thought maybe you get a little bit sad that you couldn't help anyone. I don't know. And maybe when you do get to the park and you meet your friend, maybe you ruin a football game because you just kick the ball and you only kick it lightly because you're so strong. It just goes miles. It goes straight up into space. You kicked it so hard. But maybe it's good. Maybe your friend has a ride of his life. Imagine how hard you could push him on the swings or on the roundabout. You might have an amazing time. So maybe pause there and add a few examples to yours if you want to. Okay, now what we're going to try and do is link these consequences together using some fronted adverbials, using some subordinating conjunctions. I'll show you in a second what I mean. Link some of those together so that we've got a paragraph just talking roughly about the sorts of things that might happen if you had that power when you came out of the shop. So here's my example. I'm just going to start. I had superhuman strength. So if your power is invisibility, just start with I was invisible or I could turn invisible. If it was flying, just start with I could fly. And then I'm going to go along and I'm going to have just some ways of linking my sentences together. Some of them might be fronted adverbials with commas after. Some of them might be subordinate conjunctions like because or when or until, things like that. So I'm just going to read it through. And as I'm reading it through, have a think, where are these linking phrases that help this to be a paragraph and not just some sentences all put together? So I had superhuman strength. Because I wanted to know just how strong I was, I tried to lift up a car. And guess what? I could just lift it right up. After that, I looked around for someone who needed my help. Someone trapped underneath a truck, for example, or a farmer who needed to pull his tractor out of the mud. I should say out of the mud. Unfortunately, there was no one who seemed to need my incredible strength. Just then, I leaned against a wall to think, and the whole thing crumbled to dust, even though I barely touched it. A few minutes later, I cracked my phone screen just pressing it gently, and despite being really careful drinking a can of Coke, I crushed it and sprayed it all over myself. I was feeling pretty annoyed until I saw someone I could help. And then I'm going to go on to describe how a tree fell in the road, and then maybe I'll go on and have a little bit about what happened at the park. But if you pause the video there and think, where are these phrases I've used that link it together? Okay, so I'm going to show you. So I'm just going to get this up on the screen. I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see. There we go. Now, first thing I'm going to do is correct that mistake I found. Pull his tractor out of the mud. Perfect. Right. So here are my phrases. So I've got because there. So I've used that subordinating conjunction. That helps to link it together. I've got a fronted adverbial here after that. So I read that after that. I've got a fronted adverbial here, unfortunately. And another fronted adverbial just then. I've got a subordinate conjunction here, even though I barely touched it. I've then got a fronted adverbial a few minutes later. I'm just linking it with time. I can't refer to just pressing it gently, and despite. So I've got a subordinate conjunction there. Despite being really careful, I crushed it, sprayed all over myself. And I've got a last one, a subordinate conjunction there, until I saw someone I could help. So those things link these sentences together. So try and use some of those, use some of my examples, use some of the subordinate conjunctions from the slide at the beginning, use some of those fronted adverbials, and yeah, have a go at just writing it. Be imaginative. What might happen if you had that power as you were leaving the shop and walking down the street?